What the hell are you doing in my pool with my daughter? Richard Harlan exploded through the backyard gate of his Manhattan mansion, freezing at the sight. Elena Thompson, his black nanny, drenched and gasping, hauling 6-year-old Sophie from the water's edge. Both coughed, soaked to the bone. Richard charged forward, yanking Elena's arm. You let her drown! You're fired! Get out! He hurled his wallet at her feet, bills scattering like accusations. Take your pity, pay and vanish. Elena steadied herself, clutching Sophie protectively. Mr. Harlan, she slipped. I dove in too. He cut her off, roaring. Shut your mouth! No excuses from you! Fury blinded him as he shoved her toward the gate, ignoring Sophie's whimpers. Elena straightened, eyes locked on his. You'll regret not seeing the truth. She turned, strode away with unyielding dignity, leaving Richard alone with the echoing silence and his daughter's sobs. But the real shock was just beginning. Like if you've ever been wrongly accused, comment below. Richard Harlan's feet pounded the manicured lawn, his tie flapping wildly as he burst through the wrought iron gate. His heart slammed against his ribs. Home early from the board meeting, expecting quiet, not this chaos. There, at the pool's edge, Elena Thompson knelt, her uniform clinging like a second skin, water streaming from her dark curls. She cradled Sophie, the 6-year-old's tiny chest heaving, coughing up chlorinated water. Elena's arms trembled, but she held firm, whispering, It's okay, baby girl. Breathe for me. Richard's vision tunneled. What the hell are you doing? He bellowed, voice cracking like thunder. He dropped his briefcase with a thud, sprinting forward. Elena's head snapped up, eyes wide with exhaustion and something sharper. Defiance? No, that couldn't be. She was the nanny, the help he'd hired on a whim 4 months ago. A 28-year-old from Jamaica scraping by in New York after losing her nursing gig in the pandemic. He'd barely noticed her beyond the efficient way she kept Sophie fed and the house spotless. But now she was soaked, holding his daughter like she owned her. He skidded to a halt, yanking Sophie's limp form from Elena's grasp. Daddy, Sophie whimpered, clinging to his shirt, her wet hair soaking his collar. Richard's mind raced. Images of lawsuits, headlines, his pristine reputation shattered. You were supposed to watch her. How could you let this happen? His words sliced the air, sharp and accusatory. Elena pushed to her feet, water pooling at her sneakers, her breath ragged from the dive. She wasn't a strong swimmer. She'd told him that in the interview, but he'd dismissed it as irrelevant. Now her lips tinged blue, she opened her mouth. Mr. Harlan, But his fury boiled over, drowning her out. He couldn't see the heroism, only the failure. Elena, with her quiet strength and patient smile that had calmed Sophie through nightmares, now stood accused in his eyes. She was the outsider, the black woman in his white marble world, and in this moment, that difference amplified every doubt he'd buried. Don't you dare explain! You put my child in danger! He thrust Sophie behind him, shielding her as if Elena were the threat. Inside, a voice nagged. Why was Elena wet too? But rage silenced it. Elena's fists clenched at her sides, nails digging into palms. He doesn't see me, she thought. Never has. Just the help, not the savior. Her chest ached from swallowed water, but she lifted her chin, refusing to crumble. Richard's face twisted, veins bulging in his neck. He towered over her, the millionaire real estate tycoon who'd built an empire on cutthroat deals, now unleashing that same ruthlessness on the woman who just risked her life. You're done here. Pack your things. No, leave them. Just go. His hand shot to his pocket, fumbling for his phone to call security, but Elena didn't flinch. She met his glare, her brown eyes steady, holding a mirror to his blindness. One day he'll choke on this regret, she thought, her pulse steadying despite the sting. Sophie's small hand tugged at Richard's sleeve. Daddy, Miss Elena saved me. She jumped in. But Richard shushed her, his focus locked on Elena like a predator. Elena's shoulders squared. She wouldn't beg. Years of scraping by, sending money home to her ailing mother in Jamaica, enduring sidelong glances in this city of glass towers, had forged her resilience. Fine, she said. voice low but firm, turning on her heel. Water sloshed from her clothes with each step, leaving dark trails on the stone patio. Richard watched her go, a flicker of unease piercing his anger, but he shoved it down. Good riddance, he told himself, scooping Sophie up and heading inside, the gate clanging shut behind Elena like a final judgment. Yet as Elena walked down the driveway, her soaked shoes squelching, she felt no defeat, only a quiet fire. He'll learn, she thought, hailing a cab with her last 20. Back at the mansion, Richard dried Sophie with a towel, her tears mixing with pool water. "It's okay, princess," he murmured, but his hands shook. The house felt emptier already, the silence mocking him. Elena's words echoed, "You'll regret not seeing the truth." He dismissed it, pouring a scotch, but the glass felt heavy in his grip. Outside, the pool rippled innocently, hiding the near tragedy Elena had averted. Richard glanced at the security panel. Maybe he should check the footage. No, later. For now, he sat in the dim light, rubbing his temples, the weight of his snap judgment settling like lead in his gut. Elena's cab sped toward Brooklyn, her mind replaying the dive. Sophie's splash, the cold water swallowing her small body. Elena's instinctive leap despite her fear of depths. I saved her, she thought, clenching her jaw against the injustice. And he threw me out like trash. But she wouldn't break. She'd find another job. Keep pushing. Richard, meanwhile, paced the kitchen, Sophie's questions piercing. "Where's Miss Elena?" She promised story time. He snapped, "She's gone," but regret gnawed. The hospital bill from his wife's final days flashed in memory. Hadn't Elena's name been on it? No time for that now. He tucked Sophie in, her eyes puffy from crying, and retreated to his office. The security app blinked on his phone. Just one look, he thought, finger hovering. The truth waited, ready to shatter his world. Richard's grip tightened on Sophie, his daughter's wet body shivering against his chest. He set her down on a lounge chair, wrapping her in a towel with rough, urgent motions. Elena stood there, water dripping from her hem, her breath still coming in short gasps. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, salt stinging her eyes, not just from the pool, but from the raw sting of his words. "He thinks I let this happen?" her mind screamed, but she bit it back, focusing on Sophie. The little girl reached out a trembling hand toward her. "Miss Elena, it hurts. The water." But Richard stepped between them, blocking the view like a wall, his face flushed red, eyes narrowing to slits. "You don't touch her again. Ever." He pointed a finger at Elena's chest, close enough she could feel the heat of his rage. Elena's heart pounded, memories flashing. The splash, Sophie's arms flailing, the cold shock as she plunged in, her own lungs burning as she kicked toward the bottom. She'd grabbed the child, pushed her up for air first, even as black spots danced in her vision. I saved her, she thought, fists balling at her sides. But Richard saw none of it. To him, she was the problem, the negligent outsider in his perfect world. "Get out," he snarled, voice low and venomous now. "Cut Koijai. You're fired right this second." He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out his leather wallet, fingers shaking with adrenaline. Bills spilled out as he flung it at her, the wallet smacking against her shoulder before tumbling to the wet tiles. 20s and hundreds scattered like confetti, some sticking to the puddles. Elena flinched, the impact sharp against her damp skin, but she didn't bend to pick them up. Not his charity, she thought, chin lifting. The money lay there, mocking her, payment for a life saved, reduced to trash on the ground. Richard advanced, towering over her, his expensive suit now spotted with water from Sophie's hug. "You think you can just stand there? Take your crap and leave. Wait, no. Don't even go inside. I'll have your things thrown out later." He gestured wildly toward the gate, as if shooing a stray dog. Elena's cheeks burned, humiliation mixing with the chill of her clothes. She left Jamaica for this city of dreams, only to face doors slammed in her face time and again. Nursing school cut short by the pandemic, jobs lost to biases she couldn't name, and now this, risking her life for his child, only to be discarded like yesterday's news. He doesn't even ask if I'm okay, she realized, a bitter taste rising in her throat. Sophie whimpered from the chair. "Daddy, no." Miss Elena didn't. She helped, but Richard shot her a look. Quiet, Sophie. This is adult business. Elena's eyes met the girl's, a silent promise. I'll be fine. She straightened her uniform, water squelching in her shoes, refusing to let tears fall. Not in front of him. Her mind raced to her tiny apartment in Brooklyn, the stack of bills waiting, her mother's voice on the phone last night. Keep strong, child. Strength was all she had left. Richard scooped up the wallet, shoving a wad of bills into her hand forcefully. Take it. For your trouble. Now go. Before I call the cops. The bills crumpled in her palm, damp and meaningless. Elena pushed them back toward him, letting them drop. I don't want your money. I want you to see what really happened. But he turned away, dismissing her with a wave, focusing on Sophie instead. Elena's chest heaved, anger coiling tight. Blind fool, she thought, turning toward the gate. Her steps were deliberate, each one echoing her resolve. The driveway stretched long, the mansion's shadow looming, but she walked with head high, leaving the scattered cash behind like a trail of his shame. Inside, Richard bundled Sophie inside, slamming the French doors. The warmth of the house hit him, but it did nothing for the cold knot in his stomach. Sophie tugged at his hand. Why did you yell at her? She saved me. He knelt, forcing a smile. She didn't, princess. She was careless. But Sophie's eyes accused him, and he looked away. Alone in the foyer, he paced, the echo of his shouts ringing in his ears. What if I overreacted? The thought flickered, but he crushed it. No, she was responsible. Yet as he carried Sophie upstairs, her small body heavy with exhaustion, doubt crept in. Elena's face haunted him, calm, unyielding. You'll regret not seeing the truth. He shook it off, tucking Sophie in, but the words lingered like a curse. Down the hall, the security room light blinked. Richard paused at the door, hand on the knob. Later, he thought, heading to his study instead. He poured another scotch, the liquid burning down his throat. The house felt too quiet now, the absence of Elena's soft footsteps noticeable. She was just the nanny, he told himself, sinking into his chair. But his fingers drummed the desk, unease growing. Outside, Elena boarded a bus, her wet clothes drawing stares, but she ignored them, staring out the window at the blurring city. He'll learn the hard way, she thought, clenching her jaw. The injustice burned, but it fueled her. She'd survive this, like always. Back at the mansion, Richard glanced at his phone, the security app icon glowing. His finger hovered again, a pull he couldn't ignore. The truth was one click away, ready to upend everything. Elena's bus rumbled toward Brooklyn, her mind shifting to practicalities. Find a new job, pay rent, send money home. But the ache in her chest wasn't from the cold. It was from the betrayal. I dove in without thinking, for her. Sophie's face flashed, innocent and trusting. Richard, meanwhile, set the glass down hard, standing abruptly. He strode to the security room, flipping on the monitor. Footage loaded, the pool came replaying the moment. Sophie playing, slipping, vanishing under the surface. Elena dropping everything, sprinting, diving headfirst. Richard's breath caught as he watched her struggle, pulling Sophie up, both gasping. He rewound, played again, the reality hitting like a wave. She saved her. His knees buckled, sinking into a chair. The wallet incident replayed in his mind. The throw, the bills flying. Shame washed over him, hot and unrelenting. What have I done? But the Danny stops here for point two. No further. Richard rubbed his face, the screen frozen on Elena's heroic plunge. Regret clawed at him, but action would come later. For now the injustice hung heavy, a domino tipped, waiting to fall. Elena's back straightened like a rod forged in fire, her soaked uniform heavy, but her posture unyielding. The scattered bills lay at her feet, ignored, as she locked eyes with Richard. His rage still simmered, face contorted, but she saw the flicker, uncertainty cracking his armor. He thinks he's the victim, she thought, her pulse steady despite the adrenaline crash. Water trickled down her neck, cold against her warm skin, but she didn't shiver. Not here, not now. You'll regret not seeing the truth, she said, voice clear and measured, cutting through the tension like a blade. No plea, no anger, just fact, delivered with the quiet authority of someone who'd faced worse. Richard's jaw clenched, his fists balling at his sides. Who does she think she is? He seethed inwardly. But her gaze held him, mirroring back his blindness. Sophie peeked from behind him, eyes wide and teary, her small fingers twisting the towel. Miss Elena, the girl whispered. But Elena offered a soft smile, a silent reassurance. I'm okay. Richard snorted, breaking the stare first. Regret? For firing incompetent help? Get out before I make it worse. He turned his back, dismissing her, scooping Sophie up again as if to erase the moment. But Elena didn't budge immediately. She lingered a beat, letting her words sink in, her mind flashing to the dive. The panic in Sophie's eyes underwater, the burn in her lungs as she fought to surface with the child in tow. I could have drowned too, she realized, a quiet fury building. But dignity won. She wouldn't stoop to his level. With a final glance at Sophie, stay strong, little one, Elena pivoted, her steps deliberate across the patio. Water sloshed from her shoes, leaving dark footprints that would dry and fade, unlike the scar of this injustice. The gate loomed ahead, the mansion's opulent facade mocking her exit. Richard watched from the corner of his eye, a twinge in his chest he couldn't name. She's just walking away? No begging? His ego bristled, but doubt whispered louder now. Sophie's head rested on his shoulder, her voice muffled. Daddy, why? She pulled me out. He shushed her again, carrying her inside, the door clicking shut with finality. The air-conditioned hall hit like a slap, but Richard's mind stayed outside, replaying Elena's words. Truth? What is the truth? He set Sophie down in the living room, fetching dry clothes with mechanical efficiency. His hands fumbled the buttons, unusual for a man who closed million-dollar deals without blinking. Elena, meanwhile, reached the end of the driveway, the iron gate swinging open automatically. She stepped onto the sidewalk, the city noise rushing in, horns blaring, pedestrians hurrying past without a glance at the drenched woman. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, somehow spared from the water. A text from her roommate. Home soon? Rent due. Elena's lips pressed thin. Another job hunt, she thought, hailing a cab with a raised hand. The driver eyed her warily. You're wet, lady. But she slid in anyway, directing him to Brooklyn. As the cab pulled away, she glanced back at the mansion shrinking in the rear view. He'll see, she affirmed, her resolve hardening. The injustice fueled her, a fire that had burned low through years of overlooked efforts, nursing shifts where she'd held dying hands, including, unknowingly, Richard's wife's. One day, it'll come out. Back inside, Richard paced the marble floor, Sophie's questions relentless. When is Miss Elena coming back? She reads the best stories. He snapped, She's not. Now go change. But alone, he slumped against the counter, rubbing his forehead. The security light in the hall caught his eye again. The app on his phone was tempting. What if? He shook his head, pouring water for Sophie instead. Yet the silence pressed, the house echoing without Elena's presence. Her words looped. You'll regret not seeing the truth. Regret? He scoffed aloud, but his reflection in the window showed a man unsettled, cracks forming in his facade. Elena's cab weaved through traffic, her mind shifting to survival. Call the agency tomorrow. Find something quick. But the ache in her ribs, from the dive, from the shove, reminded her of the cost. She closed her eyes, humming a Jamaican lullaby her mother taught her, the rhythm steadying her breath. I did right by that child. Dignity intact, she arrived at her building, a cramped walk-up in a noisy neighborhood. Neighbors nodded as she passed, one asking, Rough day? She forced a smile. Just wet. Upstairs, she peeled off the uniform, hot shower washing away the chlorine, but not the sting. Wrapped in a robe, she sank onto her bed, phone in hand. No missed calls from him. Of course not. But deep down she knew. The truth would surface, and when it did, he'd crumble. Richard tucked Sophie into bed early, her eyelids heavy from the ordeal. Story, she mumbled. He hesitated, grabbing a book from the shelf, Elena's favorite. As he read haltingly, Sophie's hand clutched his. Miss Elena does voices better. He stopped, the book closing with a snap. Downstairs, the security room called. This time he entered, monitoring flickering to life. Footage cued. Sophie's slip, the splash, Elena's sprint and dive. He watched, breath hitching as she struggled, saving his daughter at her own peril. The screen blurred. Tears? No, impossible. He rewound, the heroism undeniable. She jumped in, knowing she couldn't swim well. Shame crashed over him, waves stronger than any pool. The hospital bill drawer pulled open next. There it was, Elena's signature on his wife's charts. She cared for Marissa too? His world tilted, regret flooding in full force. But Elena in her apartment brewed tea staring at the wall. He threw money at me like dirt. The memory burned, but she breathed deep, pulling out her journal. Pen scratched. Today I saved a life and lost a job. Tomorrow I will rise again. Dignity her shield, she slept fitfully. Dreams of water and accusations. Richard, sleepless, stared at the ceiling, her words a mantra. You'll regret. Dawn would bring action. But for now, the injustice lingered. A bridge burned, waiting for reconstruction. The mansion's doors sealed shut with a resounding click, echoing through the empty halls like a judgment passed. Richard Harlan stood in the foyer, Sophie's weight sagging in his arms, her sobs muffled against his shoulder. The air hung heavy, stripped of Elena's quiet presence, the soft hum of her vacuum, the faint scent of lavender from her cleaning sprays. Now only silence broken by Sophie's hiccuping cries. Daddy, why did Miss Elena go? She saved me. Her small fists clutched his shirt, tears soaking through the fabric. Richard's jaw tightened, a vein pulsing in his temple. He carried her upstairs, each step heavier than the last, his mind a whirlwind of justification. She was careless. I did what any father would. But Sophie's words gnawed, her body still shivering from the near drowning. He set her down in her room, peeling off her wet swimsuit with mechanical hands. Shh, princess, it's over now. He wrapped her in a fluffy robe, but her eyes accused him, wide and red-rimmed. She jumped in. The water was so deep, I couldn't breathe. Sophie buried her face in a pillow, sobs racking her frame. He knelt beside the bed, stroking her hair, but his touch felt awkward, foreign. Where's the damn nanny when... The thought cut off, irony biting hard. Elena had been the one to soothe these meltdowns with her gentle stories and warm hugs. Now the room felt colder, the princess posters on the walls staring back mockingly. Richard's chest constricted, an unfamiliar pang twisting inside. Just fatigue, he told himself, standing abruptly. Rest now. I'll check on you soon. He closed the door softly, but Sophie's muffled cries followed him down the hall, each one a needle prick. Downstairs, the house amplified the void. No clatter from the kitchen, no footsteps on the marble. Richard wandered into his study, the door creaking open to reveal shadows pooling in the corners. He flicked on a desk lamp, the dim glow casting harsh lines on his face. Sinking into the leather chair, he poured scotch from the crystal decanter. 2 fingers, then 3. The amber liquid swirled in the glass, but he didn't sip yet. Instead, he stared at it, fingers drumming the armrest. She walked out like she owned the place. Elena's defiance replayed, straight back, unflinching eyes. Regret? For what? His free hand rubbed his temples, pressing hard as if to squeeze out the unease. The silence pressed in, Sophie's distant whimpers filtering through the vents like ghosts. Why won't she stop? He slammed the glass down, liquid sloshing over the rim. Pacing to the window, he gazed at the pool, now still and mocking under the floodlights. The scattered bills outside? Had the wind taken them? Her problem, he thought, but the image stuck. Money thrown like garbage. His reflection in the glass showed a man unraveled, tie askew, hair disheveled. Pull it together. But the knot in his gut tightened, regret's first tendrils creeping in. Upstairs, Sophie curled under her blankets, clutching her stuffed bear, the one Elena had sewn a patch on last week. Come back, she whispered to the dark, tears streaking her cheeks. The house absorbed her grief, amplifying the emptiness. Richard returned to his chair, Picking up the glass again, he sipped this time, the burn grounding him momentarily. But his eyes drifted to the security panel on the wall, the red light blinking insistently. Check it. End this doubt. He shook his head, rubbing his eyes instead. The scotch warmed his veins, but the silence screamed louder. Sophie's cries faded to sniffles, leaving only the tick of the clock. What if I was wrong? The thought slipped through, unbidden. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, fingers digging into the armrests. The study felt like a cage now, walls closing in with memories of Marissa, her laugh, her final days in the hospital. Elena, that name on the bill. He bolted upright, the connection sparking, but he shoved it down, pouring another drink. Tomorrow. Deal with it tomorrow. Yet the silence mocked him. Sophie's absence of laughter, a void Elena had filled. His hand trembled on the glass, the weight of his actions settling like stones. She dove in. Sophie's words echoed. Richard's forehead throbbed as he rubbed harder, the regret building, a storm on the horizon. The house, once a fortress, now felt haunted by his haste. Elena's absence lingered like a shadow, the task she'd handled piling up in his mind. Dinner prep, bedtime routines. I'll hire someone new, he resolved, but the thought rang hollow. Upstairs, Sophie finally drifted to sleep, exhausted, her hair damp with tears. Richard sat alone, the scotch forgotten, staring into the dim light. His fingers traced the desk edge, mind replaying the shove, the throw. Blind, Elena's eyes had said without words. He stood, pacing again, the silence deafening. The security app on his desk phone glowed, tempting, accusing. Just one look. His hand reached out, hesitated, then pulled back. Regret clawed deeper, the quiet mirror to his isolation. But the night wore on, the house's stillness a punishment. Richard slumped forward, head in hands, rubbing his temples until they ached. The glass stared back, empty now. What have I done? The question hung, unanswered, as the silence swallowed him whole. Richard's fingers dug deeper into his temples, the pressure building like a vice, but it did nothing to ease the pounding headache brewing. The scotch sat untouched now, its sharp scent filling the study, mocking his unraveling control. He shoved back from the desk, chair scraping the hardwood with a harsh grind. Evidence? What evidence? The word from Sophie's earlier murmur echoed, but he pushed it away, or tried to. His eyes flicked to the security console again, the screen's glow pulling him like a magnet. Just paranoia, he muttered under his breath, but his feet moved anyway, carrying him across the room. He jabbed the power button, the monitor flickering to life with a low hum. The interface loaded, thumbnails of cameras popping up. Front gate, driveway, pool. His cursor hovered over the pool feed. Time-stamp from an hour ago. One click. That's all. Heart thudding, he selected it, the video spooling back. There. Sophie at the edge, toy in hand, leaning too far. The slip, sudden, silent, her body vanishing under the blue surface with a splash. Richard's breath caught, hand flying to his mouth. Bubbles rose, no sign of the girl resurfacing. Then Elena burst into frame, mop clattering from her hands. No hesitation, she sprinted, shoes kicking off mid-stride, diving headfirst into the deep end. The camera caught it all, her arms slicing water, body twisting toward the bottom, grabbing Sophie's limp form. They broke the surface together, Elena gasping, coughing, but pushing Sophie to the edge first. She hoisted the child out, then clambered up herself, pounding Sophie's back until water spewed from her mouth. Breathe, baby, breathe! Elena's voice crackled through the speakers, raw and desperate. Richard rewound, played again, leaning closer to the screen. Each viewing punched harder. Elena's weak strokes. She'd mentioned not being a strong swimmer, yet she plunged in anyway. She risked everything. His stomach twisted, bile rising. The shove, the thrown wallet, her dignified exit, all replayed in his mind, overlaid with this truth. I accused her, threw money at her like she was nothing. Shame burned his cheeks, hot and unrelenting. He paused the footage on Elena's face. Exhausted, determined, heroic. But there was more. The desk drawer called now, the one with old papers he'd avoided since Marissa's death. He yanked it open, files spilling. There, buried under insurance forms, the hospital bill from those final weeks. Marissa's name at the top, treatments listed, and at the bottom, nurse signatures. Elena Thompson, shift after shift, her neat handwriting noting vitals, comfort measures. She was there? Richard's vision blurred, fingers tracing the ink. Memories flooded. Marissa's pale face, the beeps of machines, a kind nurse with a Jamaican accent holding her hand through the pain. It was her. Elena cared for my wife, and I didn't even recognize her. He crumpled the bill in his fist, knuckles white, blind, utterly blind. The study spun, walls closing in. He staggered back to the chair, collapsing, head in hands. Rubbing his temples did nothing now. The ache spread to his chest, a deep, gnawing guilt. She saved Marissa's last days. And today, Sophie. Tears pricked his eyes unbidden, the tycoon's facade cracking. He pictured Elena's exit again, straight-backed, refusing the money, her words a prophecy fulfilled. You'll regret it. Oh, he did, fiercely. Upstairs, Sophie stirred in her sleep, murmuring, Miss Elena. The house amplified it through the baby monitor on his desk. Richard winced, the sound a dagger. What kind of father am I? He stood, pacing furiously, scotch forgotten. The evidence stared back from the screen and paper. Irrefutable, damning. I have to fix this. But how? Elena's face in the footage. Strong, unbreaking. She won't beg. Why should she? Guilt coiled tighter, his breath short. He grabbed his phone, scrolling contacts. The agency? No, too impersonal. I need to see her, apologize. But the address? Brooklyn, vague from the hiring papers. The bill trembled in his hand. She was there for Marissa when I couldn't be. Flashbacks hit, board meetings pulling him away. Marissa alone, but for nurses like Elena. She held her hand, eased her pain. Tears fell now, splashing the paper. Richard wiped them roughly, standing straighter. Action, now! He snatched his keys but paused. Sophie asleep, alone. The nanny cam would have to do it. Down the hall, he glanced at her door, guilt doubling. I drove away the one person she trusts. Outside, the night air hit cool, but sweat beaded on his forehead. He slid into his Mercedes, engine roaring to life. Find her. Make it right. But as he sped toward Brooklyn, doubt whispered, what if she refuses? The hospital bill sat on the passenger seat, a talisman of his failure. Elena, in her apartment, sipped tea, journal open but untouched. He'll learn, she thought, but exhaustion claimed her. Sleep fitful with dreams of water and accusations. Richard's car sliced through the city, the weight of evidence burning in his pocket. Guilt propelled him, a force unstoppable now. The drive blurred, lights streaking, horns blaring. He gripped the wheel, knuckles aching. How could I not see? The footage looped in his mind. Dive, rescue, his own blind rage. Monster. Self-loathing surge, temples throbbing anew. Brooklyn Low Richard's Mercedes tore through the night, tires screeching as he veered onto the Brooklyn Bridge, city lights blurring into streaks. His knuckles whitened on the wheel, the hospital bill crumpled on the passenger seat like an accusation. Find her. Fix this. The engine roared, matching the chaos in his head. Elena's dive replaying, her face in the footage etched with effort, not negligence. Guilt throttled him, each mile a lash. How far did she go? Cab? Bus? He slammed the dashboard, cursing his blindness. Brooklyn's streets narrowed, high-rises giving way to brownstones and flickering street lamps. He punched the agency's number into his phone, speaker blaring. This is Richard Harlan, the nanny, Elena Thompson. Address, now. The operator stammered, Sir, privacy policy. Override it. Emergency. A pause, then an address rattled off. A walk-up in Bed-Stuy. Richard hung up, GPS recalibrating. She lives here? The neighborhood unfolded. Graffiti-splashed walls, corner stores with iron grates, groups lingering on stoops. His car stood out like a sore thumb, drawing stares as he parked. He bolted from the seat, slamming the door, suit jacket flapping. The building loomed, cracked steps leading to a buzzer panel. He jabbed Elena's apartment number, static, no answer. Again, nothing. Gone already? Frustration boiled. He pounded the door, wood rattling. A neighbor's window cracked open above. "Hey, keep it down!" Richard spun, spotting an older woman peering out. "Elena Thompson, does she live here?" The woman eyed him suspiciously, taking in his tailored suit. "Who wants to know?" "Her employer. Urgent," she snorted. "Employer?" She came home soaked, muttering about some rich fool. "Ain't here now. Volunteering at the center down the block. King's Community House. But if you're trouble..." Richard cut her off with a nod, already striding away. Volunteering. After that, his shoes pounded pavement, passing chain-link fences and overflowing trash bins. The center appeared, a squat brick building, lights warm through barred windows. Laughter spilled out, children's voices high and carefree. He pushed through the door, bell jingling. Inside, chaos reigned, kids darting between tables, crayons scattering, a volunteer calling for order. And there, Elena knelt by a cluster of toddlers, bandaging a scraped knee with gentle hands. Her curls tied back, fresh clothes hiding the earlier ordeal, but fatigue lined her eyes. She didn't notice him at first, focused on the child. "There, all better. See? Brave like a lion." The kid grinned, hugging her leg. Elena stood, wiping hands on her jeans, a 28-year-old force of quiet strength amid the storm. "After everything, she's here?" Richard's throat tightened. He stepped forward, but a staffer blocked him. "Sir, can I help?" "Elena Thompson. I need to speak with her." The staffer frowned, glancing at Elena. "She's busy. Who are you?" Richard's impatience flared, but he swallowed it, not like before. "Her former boss. Please." Elena turned at the voice, eyes widening. Recognition hit, her posture stiffening like steel. "Him? Here?" She handed off a toy to a child, crossing the room with measured steps. Kids tugged at her sleeves. "Miss Elena, story time." But she shushed them gently, focusing on Richard. He shifted, suit feeling out of place amid the finger paints and worn rugs. "Elena, She crossed arms, chin lifting. "What do you want, Mr. Harlan? Come to throw more money?" The words stung, her voice low to shield the kids. Richard's hands rose in surrender. "No, I saw the footage. You saved her." He pulled the crumpled bill from his pocket, holding it out like evidence. "And this, Marissa. You were her nurse. I didn't know." Elena's eyes flicked to the paper, a flash of pain crossing her face. He remembers now, but she didn't soften. "Doesn't change what you did." Kids nearby paused their play, sensing tension. Richard lowered his voice. "Please, let me explain." She glanced at the children, then nodded toward a side door. "Outside, not here." They stepped into the alley, cool air hitting like a slap. Richard faced her, words tumbling. "The camera showed everything. Your dive. You could have drowned." Elena leaned against the wall, arms still crossed. "I know, but Sophie needed me." He rubbed his neck, avoiding her gaze. "And Marissa, you held her hand those nights. I was in meetings, building the empire, while you..." His voice cracked. "Fool." Elena's expression shifted, slight, but there. He sees it now. "I did my job, like today." Richard met her eyes finally. "I was wrong, blind with fear. Please come back." She pushed off the wall, stepping closer. "For Sophie? Maybe. But you? You humiliated me." He nodded, no defense. "I know. I'll make it right." A child banged on the window inside, waving. Elena waved back, softening briefly. "The kids need me here too." But Sophie's face flashed in her mind. "Give me time." Richard handed her his card. "Call. Anytime." She took it, pocketing without promise. He turned to leave but paused. "Thank you. For everything." Elena watched him go. The Mercedes pulling away. Changed or just guilty? Inside, she returned to the kids, but her mind raced. Richard drove back, the obstacle overcome, but the real hurdle, her forgiveness, loomed larger. The community center buzzed on, Elena diving into story time, voices animated despite the ache in her chest. He drove here. That's something. But trust, shattered. Richard, crossing the bridge again, gripped the wheel. She volunteers after I threw her out? Admiration mixed with shame. The address mix-up, the neighbor's tip, it all led here, to her unyielding grace. I have to earn it back. Sophie waited at home, the nanny agency on speed dial, but he hesitated. No replacement, only her. The city lights faded, resolving hardening. Elena finished her shift, walking home under street lamps. Tomorrow, decide. The card burned in her pocket, a bridge half built. Richard arrived home, the mansion dark. He checked on Sophie, sleeping peacefully now. The security footage is still open on his laptop, a reminder. No more blindness. He sat staring at the bill, fingers tracing Elena's signature. She eased Marissa's pain. Now mine. Guilt eased slightly, action taken. Elena in her apartment, brewed tea again, card on the table. For Sophie. She dialed the agency. No, his number. But hung up. Not yet. The night stretched, both restless. The journey's first step crossed, obstacles surmounted, redemption beckoning. Richard's Mercedes hummed back across the bridge, the city skyline shrinking in the rear view. But his mind stayed locked on Elena's face, resolute, unbowed amid the community center's chaos. She didn't flinch. After everything, she stands tall. Guilt twisted deeper, the hospital bill on the seat a silent witness. He gripped the wheel, knuckles aching, replaying her words. For Sophie? Maybe. Hope flickered, fragile but insistent. I have to go back. Now! He slammed the brakes at a red light, U-turning sharply, horns blaring behind him. No waiting. Face her. The car sped toward Brooklyn again, tires eating pavement. Richard's pulse raced, sweat beading on his brow despite the AC's chill. What if she refuses? The center's lights glowed ahead, kids' laughter spilling out as he parked crookedly. He burst through the door, bell jangling wildly. Heads turned, staffers frowning, children pausing mid-game. Elena knelt by a table, helping a boy with blocks, her back to him. She sensed the shift, glancing over her shoulder. Eyes widened, then narrowed. Him again? She stood slowly, wiping hands on her jeans, crossing the room with deliberate steps. Mr. Harlan, back so soon? Richard stepped forward, but a volunteer intercepted. Sir, we're closing soon. He waved her off gently. Please, it's urgent. Elena nodded to the volunteer. It's okay. Then faced him, arms crossed like a shield. The room buzzed around them, kids darting, but tension thickened the air between. Richard's throat dried. The tycoon who commanded boardrooms now faltered. Elena, I can't leave it like this. She tilted her head, expression guarded. You already did. Threw me out. He dropped to one knee suddenly, the motion drawing gasps from nearby children. Crayons clattered to the floor. A girl whispered, Is he proposing? Richard ignored them, voice cracking. I was wrong, completely, utterly wrong. Elena's breath hitched, but she didn't move. He pulled the bill from his pocket, holding it up like a white flag. The footage, I watched it all. You dove in, risked your life for Sophie. And this, Marissa, you were her nurse, held her through the nights I missed. Tears gleamed in his eyes, unashamed. My wife, you eased her pain when I couldn't. And today, my daughter, I didn't see it. Blind by fear, by prejudice. Elena's fists clenched at her sides, the word prejudice hitting like a slap. He admits it? Memory surged, Marissa's frail hand in hers, whispers of gratitude in the sterile room. She fought hard, Elena said softly, voice steady. Talk about you, Sophie. I did what any nurse would. Richard bowed his head, knee pressing into the linoleum. But I saw you as less. The help. Not the hero. His shoulders shook, vulnerability cracking his facade. Kids gathered closer, wide-eyed. A boy tugged Elena's sleeve. "Miss Elena, who's he?" She shushed the child gently, eyes locked on Richard. On his knees? The millionaire? A mix of pity and power surged through her. "Stand up," she said, tone firm but not unkind. He rose slowly, face flushed, the bill trembling in his hand. "I humiliated you. Threw money like it fixed everything. It doesn't." Elena's chin lifted, recalling the bill scattering, the shove. He sees now. But forgiveness? Not yet. "Why come here?" "Guilt." Richard met her gaze, raw honesty spilling. "Yes, and more. Sophie needs you. I need to make amends." He extended the bill. "You saved my family twice. I was too blind to thank you." Elena took it, fingers brushing his. Electric, unexpected. She scanned the familiar handwriting, her own notes from those shifts. Patient resting comfortably. Marissa's smile in memory, weak but genuine. "She trusted me." Tears pricked Elena's eyes, quickly blinked away. "I didn't do it for thanks." A staffer cleared her throat nearby. "Closing time, folks." Kids groaned, packing up. Richard stepped closer, voice low. "Please, come back. Let me prove I'm changing." Elena folded the bill, pocketing it. For Sophie, for Marissa's memory, but her walls held. "Not that simple." He nodded, no pushback. "I know, but start with this. I'm sorry, truly." The apology hung, sincere, stripping him bare. Elena's chest tightened, anger easing, replaced by wary hope. He knelt, admitted bias. A child hugged her leg goodbye, breaking the moment. She nodded slowly. "We'll talk. Tomorrow." Richard exhaled, relief flooding his features. "Thank you." He turned to leave, but paused at the door, glancing back. Elena watched, the center emptying around her. Changed man? Or temporary? She locked up, stepping into the night, the bill's weight in her pocket a reminder. Richard drove home, the kneel replaying, humbling, necessary. She didn't laugh, didn't reject. Sophie slept as he entered, her peaceful face a stark contrast to the storm. He sat by her bed whispering, "She'll come back." The revelation settled, prejudice acknowledged, the confrontation's raw edge lingering. Elena walked home, stars above Brooklyn. He saw the truth. Tomorrow beckoned, amends waiting. Richard tucked the covers around Sophie, his hand lingering on her forehead. My blindness almost cost her. Guilt lingered, but action fueled him now. Elena entered her apartment, flicking on the light, the bill on the table. Nurse to nanny to... What? She sank into a chair, rubbing her arms, still sore from the dive. He knelt. The image stuck, softening her resolve. Morning would bring calls, decisions. Richard downstairs stared at the pool from the window. Hero, not villain. He poured water instead of scotch, clarity sharpening. The confrontation bridged the gap. Truth revealed. Power shifted subtly. Elena slept. Dreams lighter now. For the child. Richard dozed fitfully, anticipation buzzing. The Latin guac loomed. Conditions to come. Elena's stance softened just a fraction. The community center's door clicking shut behind the last child, leaving them in the echoing space. Richard stood there, knees still smarting from the linoleum, his suit rumpled for the first time in years. On my knees, begging the nanny. The thought humiliated him, but necessity overrode pride. Elena's eyes searched his face, weighing the sincerity in his cracked voice. He means it. For now. She uncrossed her arms, the bill's fold creasing under her fingers. Stand up, Mr. Harlan. This isn't a show. He rose, dusting his pants, but his gaze stayed low, submissive. The power dynamic flipped. Him, the millionaire, waiting on her verdict like a petitioner. Elena stepped closer, voice steady but laced with guarded hope. You saw the footage. The bill. Good. But apologies don't erase the shove, the money thrown like I'm dirt. Richard winced, the memory flashing, bills fluttering, her unyielding exit. I know. It was cruel. Blind. She nodded, not absolving, but acknowledging. A lone bulb buzzed overhead, casting shadows that danced on the walls strewn with children's drawings. "I'll come back," she said finally, words measured. Richard's head snapped up, relief flooding his features. "Thank you." But she raised a hand, cutting him off sharp. "Not for you. For Sophie. She needs stability, not your temper." He swallowed, nodding eagerly. Conditions. Of course. Elena's mind raced to the girl. Sophie's trusting hugs, her bedtime pleas for stories. Can't abandon her. But trust in him? Fractured. "And terms," she continued, voice firming like steel. "No more orders. I'm not the help. We discuss things. As equals." Richard's throat bobbed, the tycoon unaccustomed to concessions. Equals? With the nanny? But Marissa's memory urged him, her final whispers about kindness, seeing people fully. "Agreed, whatever it takes." Elena's eyes narrowed, testing. "Family therapy. You, me, Sophie. Weekly. You face what made you snap. The grief, the bias." He hesitated, jaw tightening. Therapy meant vulnerability, peeling layers he'd armored for years. Admit weakness? But Sophie's face flashed, Elena's dive replaying. "Done. I'll book it tomorrow." She paused, the center's clock ticking loud in the silence. Does he agree? No fight? A small crack in her walls. "And pay. Fair wage. Backdated for today." Richard pulled out his phone instantly. "Transferring now. Double." She shook her head. "Fair. Not charity." He typed, screen glowing, then showed her the confirmation. Elena's phone buzzed. Deposit received. No more throwing. Satisfaction bloomed, subtle but real. "One more," she added, chin lifting. "Acknowledge it publicly. No hiding the rescue. Sophie deserves to know her hero." Richard's eyes widened. Headlines, his pristine image cracked. Public? The press will feast. But he exhaled, shoulders slumping. "I'll issue a statement. Credit where due." Elena nodded, the shift palpable. Power in her hands now, dictating terms to the man who discarded her. He bends. The volunteer poked her head in. "Locking up?" Elena waved her off, turning back. "We start fresh, but one slip. I'm gone. For good." He extended a hand tentatively. "Deal." She shook it, grip firm, electric spark jumping again. "Equals." Richard's palm tingled as he pulled away, the weight lifting slightly. She's coming back. Elena released, a quiet triumph in her chest. For Sophie. And maybe healing. He turned toward the door, pausing. "Ride home? My car's outside." She considered, then nodded. "This once." They stepped into the night, the Mercedes waiting. Richard opened the passenger door for her, a first. Elena slid in, the leather unfamiliar but earned. The drive hummed in silence at first, city lights streaking past. Richard glanced sideways. "Marissa, what was she like those last days?" Elena softened. "Strong. Talked about Sophie endlessly. I want you to slow down." He gripped the wheel tighter, tears pricking. "I miss so much." "Thank you for being there." She nodded, staring out. He listens now. Brooklyn faded behind, Manhattan looming. At her building he parked. "Tomorrow? Pick you up?" Elena exited, pausing. "I'll cab. See you at the house." He watched her go, the door closing behind her. Shifted. Finally back home, Richard checked Sophie, still asleep. He sat in the study, drafting the statement on his laptop. Heroic nanny saves daughter. Humility washed over him. Elena in her apartment, changed into dry clothes, the bill on her nightstand. Conditions set. Power mine. She texted her mother, "Joe back, on my terms." Sleep came easier, the confrontation's fire cooling to resolve. Richard hit send on the draft to his PR, public now. The Latin guac complete. Terms accepted, relationship redefined. Morning promised rebuilding, step by cautious step. Sunlight filtered through the mansion's bay windows, casting golden patches on the dining room table set for three. Richard Harlan adjusted his tie, casual now, no suit, glancing at the clock. Weeks had passed since the confrontation, therapy sessions grinding through his defenses like sandpaper. Elena moved in the kitchen, Plating roasted chicken with practiced ease, her uniform swapped for jeans and a blouse. Equals, she reminded herself, the word a mantra. Sophie bounced in her chair, fork twirling. Miss Elena, is the fund ready? Can I help? Richard entered, carrying a folder thick with papers. It's official. He slid it across the table, the seal gleaming. Harlan Foundation for Black Nurses. Elena paused, wiping hands on a towel, eyes scanning the document. Millions. For training, scholarships, support. Her chest swelled. Not just words, action. You did it. Richard nodded, pulling out a chair for her. We did. Your idea in therapy. Honor Marissa. Help others like you. Sophie clapped. Yay, no more bad days for nurses. They sat, plates steaming, the air scented with herbs and warmth. Richard served Elena first, a subtle shift from orders to gestures. Pass the salad? He asked, voice soft. She did, their fingers brushing. No spark ignored now. Therapy had unearthed it all, his grief masking bias, her resilience hiding hurt. The session today was tough, he admitted, forking chicken, admitting I saw skin before strength. Elena met his gaze. But you admitted. That's step one. Sophie piped up. I like when we talk circles, holding hands. Laughter rippled, light and genuine, the family knitting together thread by thread. After dinner, they migrated to the backyard. The pool now gated, a symbol of change. Shovels weighted by a sapling oak, soil piled high. Sophie grabbed the smallest tool, giggling. For Mommy's memory. Richard knelt, dirt smudging his knees. No complaint. Marissa loved trees, strong roots. Elena joined, hands plunging into earth, cool and fertile. Building, not breaking. They dug the hole together, Sophie dropping the sapling in, roots spreading. Richard patted soil firm, Elena watering from a can. It'll grow tall, she said, voice steady. Sophie hugged them both, dirt-streaked arms wide. Our family tree. Richard stood back, wiping brow, the scene imprinting. Elena's smile, Sophie's joy, the tree standing sentinel. Trust, not power. He pulled Elena aside as Sophie chased fireflies. The foundation's first grant, your name on it. For Jamaica, your mom. Her eyes misted. You listened. He nodded. Therapy taught me. And you. Their hands linked briefly, a promise unspoken. Sophie called, group hug. They obliged, arms entwining, the garden alive with twilight chirps. Later in the study, Richard drafted the press release. Foundation launches inspired by heroic nurse Nanny. Elena reviewed it over his shoulder. Add, family built on trust. He typed, smiling. Done. Sophie burst in, drawing in hand. 3 figures under a tree. Us! They pinned it up, the image sealing the shift. Nights now held stories by Elena, therapy homework with Richard, laughter echoing halls once silent. The foundation's launch event buzzed weeks later, nurses gathered, checks distributed. Elena spoke first. This honors those unseen, carers, savers. Applause thundered. Richard followed. I learned from one such hero, trust over power. Sophie handed bouquets, beaming. Back home, they planted more. Flowers around the tree. Growing together, Elena said. Richard squeezed her hand. Always. The lesson crystallized in quiet moments. Dinners shared, therapy tears wiped, the tree budding green. Jia Jin Thuksu Juok Shai Dung Bang Long Tin, Kong Fai Quien Luk. Richard internalized it, and the empire humbled. Elena thrived, voice amplified. Sophie flourished, secure. The mansion transformed. Home now, roots deep, branches wide. Evenings ended with hugs. The pools ripple a distant echo. Change rooted, blooming eternal. In the end, this story reminds us that a true family isn't built on power or prejudice, but on trust, gratitude, and the courage to admit our mistakes. Seeing the hero in those we've overlooked can change everything. What about you? Share your thoughts or a similar story of injustice turned to redemption in the comments below. We'd love to hear. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay strong,